Hey guys, tonight we tread softly through an ancient world where love wasn't just a feeling. It was a sacred craft. Picture this. The Nile stretches out like liquid obsidian under a silver moon, its surface rippling with secrets whispered by lovers long gone. The air is warm but carries the faintest chill of mystery, and somewhere in the distance, you hear the low hum of cicadas blending with the soft rustle of palm fronds. You're walking barefoot on cool sandstone floors inside a temple shrouded in shadows, your fingers brushing against walls etched with hieroglyphs so old they almost feel alive. These aren't just carvings, they're confessions, promises, pleas for passion immortalized in stone. And here's the kicker. You probably won't survive this journey unchanged. Love has a way of doing that. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment below telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. I always love knowing who's keeping me company tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You tiptoe deeper into the temple, your footsteps muffled by centuries of dust. This place feels heavy, not oppressive, but full. Like every breath you take pulls and fragment of lives lived thousands of years ago. Historians still argue whether these temples were primarily places of worship or also served as sanctuaries for those seeking guidance in matters of the heart. Either way, it doesn't matter now because you're here, and something about this space makes your pulse quicken. It's not fear exactly, more like anticipation. The walls around you are adorned with scenes of gods and mortals intertwined. Not literally, though some of the imagery might raise an eyebrow or two. There's Hathor, the cow-headed goddess of love, music, and joy, pouring libations over couples locked in eternal embrace. Beside her, Bes, the mischievous dwarf god, grins wickedly, his tongue sticking out as if he knows something you don't. And then there are the humans, lovers depicted hand in hand, their faces serene yet somehow electric with longing. One carving catches your eye, a man offering a lotus flower to a woman whose expression suggests she's trying very hard not to laugh at him. Maybe he picked the wrong bloom, or maybe, just maybe, she's charmed despite herself. As you move further, the scent changes subtly. It's earthy, musky, with a hint of sweetness that reminds you of honey drizzled over fresh bread. That aroma? Kifi, a sacred incense burned during rituals meant to invoke divine favor, and perhaps a little extra luck in affairs of the heart. You'll learn more about that later. But for now, let it wrap around you like a comforting blanket. Ancient Egyptians believed smells could influence emotions, and honestly, can you blame them? Think about how certain scents transport you back to specific moments in your own life. For them, Kifi wasn't just pleasant, it was powerful. But wait, what's that sound? A faint echo, like someone whispering just out of earshot. You pause, straining to catch the words, but all you hear is the faintest murmur. Was it real, or did your imagination conjure it up? Hard to say when you're surrounded by so much history. Still, it gives you goosebumps, doesn't it? That's the magic of this place. It teases your senses, keeps you guessing, never quite letting you settle into certainty. And speaking of uncertainty, did you know that many scholars believe Egyptian temples doubled as early matchmaking hubs? Yeah. Kind of like ancient Tinder, except instead of swiping right, priests would interpret omens and dreams to determine compatibility. Imagine showing up at one of these temples, hoping for a sign that your crush felt the same way. Would you trust the priest's verdict, or would you go rogue and follow your heart anyway? Tough call, right? But hey, that's love for you, messy, unpredictable, and occasionally requiring divine intervention. You continue exploring, running your fingertips along intricate carvings that tell stories older than memory itself. Some depict grand ceremonies, others intimate moments shared between lovers. Each image seems to pulse with life, as if the people within them might step out and greet you at any moment. And maybe, just maybe, they do, in your mind at least, because that's the thing about history. It's not dead. Not really. It lingers, waiting for someone like you to come along and breathe new meaning into it. Before you leave this section of the temple, you notice a small alcove tucked away in the corner. Inside, a statue of Hathor stands watch, her eyes gleaming faintly in the dim light. She looks almost inviting, as if she knows you'll return to her soon enough. But for now, it's time to move on. The night is young, and there's so much more to discover. So take a deep breath. Let the Kiffy linger in your lungs, and prepare yourself for what comes next. After all, love waits for no one. The scent of Kiffy grows stronger as you step into a chamber bathed in the soft glow of flickering oil lamps. The air feels thicker here, almost syrupy, like it's been infused with centuries of longing and desire. You glance around, taking the rows of alabaster jars lining the walls, each one sealed with wax and inscribed with symbols you can't quite decipher. These aren't just storage vessels. They're time capsules, holding secrets that have outlasted empires. And at the heart of it all is the incense itself, Kiffy, whose name translates to welcome to the gods. But tonight, you suspect its purpose was far more earthly, igniting passion, soothing restless hearts, and perhaps even mending broken ones. You pause to examine one of the jars, its surface cool beneath your fingertips. Historians still argue whether Kiffy was primarily a religious offering or if its aphrodisiac properties were intentionally harnessed for romantic rituals. Either way, the recipe alone reads like a love letter to indulgence. Imagine this. Raisins soaked in wine, honey dripping lazily from a spoon, myrrh ground into a fine powder, and juniper berries crushed until their sharp, piney scent fills the room. Oh! And let's not forget the bitumen, a tar-like substance imported from distant lands. Sounds glamorous, right? Well, maybe not the bitumen part. But hey, ancient Egyptians weren't exactly known for playing it safe when it came to chemistry experiments. As you breathe in the heady aroma, you wonder how many lovers stood where you are now, clutching handfuls of dried herbs and hoping for a miracle. Maybe a young woman once prayed for her husband's safe return from battle, burning Kiffy each night to keep his memory alive. Or perhaps a man sought courage to confess his feelings to someone he'd admired from afar, trusting the smoke to carry his words to her ears, or at least to the gods who might nudge fate in his favor. Whatever their reasons, one thing is certain. Kiffy wasn't merely a fragrance. It was a conduit for hope, a tangible link between mortal desires and divine intervention. But don't let the romance fool you. Kiffy had its quirks too. For starters, making it was no small feat. Recipes varied wildly depending on the region, the priestess overseeing the blend, or even the phase of the moon. Some versions included ingredients so rare they'd make modern perfumers weep with envy. Others leaned heavily on practicality, using whatever plants grew nearby. There's even a fringe theory suggesting that certain batches contain mild hallucinogens designed to heighten emotional states during ceremonies. Can you imagine? Picture yourself inhaling deeply, only to find your vision swimming with golden light, while Hathor herself appears to offer advice on your love life. Talk about immersive customer service. Speaking of which, did you know Kiffy wasn't just for personal use? Temples often burned it during festivals celebrating fertility and renewal, blanketing entire cities in its intoxicating haze. People would gather under starlit skies, their laughter mingling with the rhythmic beat of drums, as the scent wrapped around them like an invisible embrace. It must have felt like stepping into another world, one where worries dissolved and anything seemed possible. Kind of like those late-night parties where you end up dancing barefoot in someone's backyard, except swap the bass drops for flutes and harps, and you've got the idea. Yet for all its allure, Kiffy wasn't without controversy. Some priests frowned upon its use outside sacred spaces, arguing that such potent magic belongs solely to the gods. Others whispered warnings about overindulgence, claiming that excessive exposure could cloud judgment or invite unwanted spirits into your dreams. Whether these tales held any truth remains debatable, but they added layers of mystique to an already enchanting tradition. After all, what's love without a little danger? You move closer to the central altar, where a small brazier glows softly, tendrils of smoke curling upward like ghostly fingers. Reaching out, you touch the edge of the vessel. It's warm, almost comforting, as if it knows why you're here. Closing your eyes, you allow yourself a moment to simply exist within this space, letting the scent seep into your skin and settle somewhere deep inside. Who knows? Maybe some of its power will linger long after you've left this temple behind. And speaking of lingering, have you ever noticed how smells have a way of sticking to you? Like that time you wore your partner's sweater and swore you could still smell their cologne days later. Ancient Egyptians understood this better than anyone, believing that scents carried memories and sometimes intentions far beyond their physical source. So perhaps the Kiffy isn't just working its magic on you right now. Maybe it's weaving something new into the fabric of your soul. Or maybe you're just getting high off bitumen fumes. Hard to say, really. Before moving on, you take one last look at the jars surrounding you. Their contents hidden yet undeniably potent. They remind you of unopened letters, full of promises waiting to be fulfilled. Somewhere in this room, someone once found exactly what they needed. A spark of courage, a whisper of reassurance, or maybe just the faintest hint that love hadn't forgotten them. And as you turn away, you can't help but feel a little lighter, like the weight of your own hopes has shifted ever so slightly. Whatever lies ahead, you know one thing for sure. The scent of Kiffy will stay with you, trailing behind like a shadow kissed by firelight. The soft glow of the brazier fades as you step into a quieter alcove, its centerpiece a shallow basin filled with water and floating lotus blossoms. Their petals shimmer faintly in the dim light, like tiny moons caught in a miniature sky. You kneel beside the basin, captivated by how each flower seems to pulse with life. Opening, closing, breathing almost, as if aware of your presence. This isn't just decoration. These are symbols of rebirth, purity, and love's quiet resilience. The ancient Egyptians revered the lotus for its ability to emerge pristine from muddy waters, a metaphor they couldn't resist applying to matters of the heart. But tonight, you're here to uncover more than metaphors. You're searching for the secrets hidden within those delicate blooms. You reach out hesitantly, your fingers brushing against one of the flowers. Its texture is smoother than you expected, cool and slightly damp, as though it carries the essence of the Nile itself. Historians still argue whether the lotus was primarily used in religious ceremonies, or if its role extended into personal rituals meant to heal emotional wounds. Either way, it's clear that this plant held immense significance. Imagine someone centuries ago, sitting where you are now, cradling a lotus blossom while whispering prayers for a love lost, or perhaps not yet found. It's easy to picture because the act feels so intimate, so universal. Love, after all, has always been messy business, requiring both faith and a little botanical assistance. But let's talk specifics, shall we? Because the lotus wasn't just admired for its beauty, it was also consumed. Yes, eaten. Ground into pastes, brewed into teas, or even steeped in oils. Every part of the plant had a purpose. Some believed drinking lotus-infused water could awaken dormant passions, while others claimed to help mend broken hearts by calming turbulent emotions. There's even a quirky tidbit suggesting that certain ointments made from crushed petals were applied directly to the skin during courtship rituals. Picture it. Two lovers meeting under moonlight, their faces glowing softly from the sheen of lotus oil. Romantic, sure, but also kind of greasy. Still, desperate times call for desperate measures, right? As you lean closer to examine the flowers, you notice something unusual, a faint golden hue radiating from their centers. It's subtle, almost imperceptible unless you're looking closely, but it gives them an otherworldly quality. Was this natural, or did temple priests enhance the effect somehow? Maybe they sprinkled powdered gold dust onto the petals, believing it added extra potency to their spells. Or perhaps it's simply the way the lamplight dances across the surface of the water, creating illusions that play tricks on your mind. Either way, it's mesmerizing and maybe a little hypnotic. You find yourself staring longer than intended, lulled by the gentle sway of the blossoms as they drift lazily in their watery sanctuary. And then there's the sound. Not loud, not obvious, but present nonetheless. The faintest rustle as the petals shift against one another, accompanied by the occasional drip of condensation falling back into the basin. It's soothing, almost meditative, like nature's version of ASMR designed specifically for weary souls. Somewhere deep inside, you feel a tension easing, a knot unraveling that you didn't realize had been tied. Is it the lotus working its magic, or are you just susceptible to the ambience? Hard to say, but does it really matter when the result feels so good? Now, here's a fun fact. The blue lotus, in particular, was considered especially sacred due to its psychoactive properties. That's right, this wasn't just about pretty flowers. Ancient texts suggest that consuming extract from the blue lotus could induce mild euphoria, heightening sensory experiences and fostering feelings of connection. Imagine sipping tea infused with this stuff before a date. Suddenly, that awkward small talk might feel less painful, and those lingering glances? Electric, of course. Moderation would have been key. Too much euphoria could lead to unintended consequences. Let's just say Cleopatra probably knew exactly how much to use without tipping over into full-on hallucination territory. But the lotus wasn't only about sparking passion. It also symbolized healing. If a relationship soured or a lover strayed, the afflicted party might visit a temple priestess who specialized in crafting remedies involving the flower. One such remedy involves steeping dried petals overnight in honey, then mixing the resulting syrup with milk and spices. The concoction was said to restore harmony, not just between lovers, but within oneself. Think of it as ancient self-care packaged in floral form. Honestly, it sounds better than most modern detox teas, doesn't it? You dip your fingertips into the basin, letting the cool water ripple around your hand. A single petal floats toward you, nudged gently by the current. Without thinking, you pluck it from the surface and hold it up to the light. It's lighter than air, fragile yet resilient, carrying centuries of meaning in its delicate structure. For a moment, you wonder what it would be like to carry the same hope, to believe so deeply in the power of a single bloom to transform your life. Would you drink the tea, apply the oil, or simply sit quietly, allowing its presence to remind you of love's enduring possibilities? Before leaving the alcove, you place the petal back in the water, watching as it drifts away from you, carried by forces beyond your control. Like love itself, it moves unpredictably, guided by unseen currents and destined to land wherever fate dictates. And yet, despite its fragility, it survives, thriving, even because sometimes survival is the most beautiful act of all. As you rise to continue your journey, the scent of lotus lingers faintly on your skin, a reminder that even the smallest gestures can leave lasting impressions. You glide through the temple's labyrinthine corridors, your steps cushioned by the thickening silence. The air shifts subtly here, carried with a sense of reverence and mystery that feels almost alive. Ahead, you see flickers of movement, shadows dancing against the walls, their forms fluid and hypnotic. As you approach, the scene comes into focus. Women draped in sheer linen robes, their hair adorned with golden circlets, swaying rhythmically to music only they can hear. These are the priestesses of passion, the keepers of secrets whispered too softly for history books to fully capture. Their presence is magnetic, commanding attention without effort, and yet there's something deeply intimate about the way they move, as if inviting you to step closer, but never daring to intrude. One of them catches your eye, a tall figure with coal-line eyes that seem to peer straight through you. She holds a sistrum, its bronze loops tinkling softly as she moves, creating a melody that feels both ancient and achingly familiar. Historians still argue whether these priestesses were merely ceremonial figures or if they wielded genuine influence over matters of the heart. Some suggest they acted as intermediaries between mortals and deities, channeling divine wisdom to guide lovers through trials of fidelity, desire, and loss. Others propose more pragmatic roles. They may have served as counselors, matchmakers, or even early therapists, helping individuals navigate the complexities of relationships long before Freud ever scribbled his theories. But let's not kid ourselves. Their work wasn't all incense and gentle advice. Imagine walking into one of their chambers, heart pounding, clutching a token from a lover who has grown distant. You'd sit cross-legged on woven mats while the priestess studied you, her gaze sharp enough to peel back layers of pretense. Perhaps she'd ask questions so pointed they left you stammering, or maybe she'd simply listen, letting the weight of your words hang heavy in the air. Then, depending on her assessment, she might prescribe a ritual, a potion brewed under a specific constellation, a prayer recited at dawn, or even a symbolic act like releasing a bird to signify freedom from past hurts. Whatever the remedy, it would come wrapped in symbolism, designed to resonate deeply with the psyche. And oh, the remedies themselves. Quirky doesn't even begin to cover some of the fringe practices attributed to these women. Take, for instance, the use of crocodile dung. Not exactly the first ingredient you'd think when crafting love spells, but apparently prized for its supposed ability to ward off negative energies. Side note, you're probably wondering how anyone thought applying reptile poop to their skin was romantic. Honestly, same. Or consider the practice of tying knots in red thread, each loop representing a binding promise between lovers. The more knots, the stronger the bond, or so the belief went. It's hard not to chuckle at the absurdity of it all, but then again, love often drives people to extremes. Still, the priestesses weren't just conjurers of oddball rituals. They were also artists, weaving together elements of poetry, dance, and storytelling to create immersive experiences tailored to individual needs. Picture this. You're led into a dimly lit chamber where murals depicting scenes of devotion line the walls. The priestess begins a chant, her voice low and melodic, echoing off stone surfaces until it fills the room like a living entity. Around you, other women join in, their harmonies blending seamlessly with the rhythmic clatter of Sistra. Before long, you're no longer sure where reality ends and myth begins. Time slows, senses heighten, and suddenly, you find yourself crying over memories you hadn't realized still hurt. Which brings us to another fascinating aspect of their craft. Dream incubation. Yes, dreams. If a client sought answers unavailable in waking life, the priestess might prepare a special sleeping space within the temple, ensuring the environment was conducive to vivid visions. This could involve burning Kifi-infused incense. You remember the heavenly scent, don't you? Scattering lotus petals around the bed, or anointing the sleeper's forehead with sacred oils. Once settled, the individual would drift off, trusting that Hathor, or perhaps Bes, if mischief was involved, would visit them in slumber to deliver messages of clarity or comfort. Of course, interpreting these dreams required skill, and the priestesses excelled at finding meaning in even the most cryptic symbols. A serpent appearing in a vision? Oh, definitely a sign of transformation. Falling from a great height? Probably fear of losing control. And yes, sometimes the answers were frustratingly vague. But hey, isn't ambiguity part of love's charm? As you watch the priestess with the sistrum, her movements growing slower and more deliberate, you notice something remarkable. Despite their mystical aura, these women weren't untouchable goddesses. They were human, flawed, and deeply empathetic. They understood pain because they'd felt it themselves. They knew joy because they'd celebrated alongside those who came seeking solace. In many ways, their power lay not in magic, but in connection, the ability to hold space for vulnerability without judgment. That's why people trusted them, why they returned year after year, bearing gifts of gratitude and hope. Before moving on, you linger a moment longer, allowing the soft chime of the sistrum to wash over you. Its sound is oddly grounding, reminding you that even in uncertainty, there's rhythm. Even in chaos, there's harmony. And as you turn away, stepping back in the shadowy corridor, you carry with you the faintest echo of their presence, a reminder that love, in all its messy glory, deserves care, patience, and maybe just a little bit of crocodile dung. The corridor narrows as you move deeper into the temple, and the air grows warmer, carrying with it the faintest scent of milk and honey, a combination both comforting and intoxicating. Ahead, a golden glow spills from an open doorway, drawing you closer like moths to a flame. As you step inside, your breath catches. The room is dominated by a massive statue of Hathor, her cow ears peeking out from beneath an ornate headdress, her lips curled into a serene smile that feels almost maternal. She's breathtakingly beautiful. But there's something else about her presence, an energy that seems to hum softly in the background, resonating with the rhythm of your heartbeat. This isn't just a shrine. It's a sanctuary where hearts come to heal, to dream, and sometimes to break all over again. You approach the statue cautiously, your footsteps muffled by the plush reed mats covering the floor. Historians still argue whether Hathor was primarily a goddess of love, or if her role extended far beyond romance into realms of music, fertility, and even death. What's clear, though, is that she embodied joy, a force so powerful it could soothe grief, ignite passion, and inspire creativity all at once. Imagine standing here centuries ago, clutching a small offering of dates or jewelry, praying for her blessing not just for yourself but for the person whose name you whispered under your breath. Maybe you hoped she'd nudge fate in your favor. Or perhaps you simply wanted reassurance that love wasn't entirely out of reach. Whatever the reason, you weren't alone. Thousands before you had sought her guidance. Their prayers layer in the air like invisible brushstrokes on a canvas. But let's talk specifics, shall we? Because Hathor didn't just sit idly on her celestial throne waiting for mortals to sing her praises. No, she got involved in ways both subtle and spectacular. One popular ritual involved pouring libations of milk at her altars, symbolizing nourishment and renewal. The idea was simple yet profound. Just as milk sustains life, so too could Hathor sustain relationships teetering on the edge of collapse. Couples would often perform this act together, their hands brushing as they tilted clay jugs, the liquid cascading down the base of her statue in rivulets that gleamed like molten gold. It was intimate, tactile, a shared moment meant to remind them of their connection, however frayed it might have become. And then there were the festivals. Oh, the festivals. During certain times of the year, entire communities would gather to honor Hathor, transforming the temple grounds into a riot of color, sound, and emotion. Musicians played harps and flutes, dancers twirled until they were dizzy, and everyone drank copious amount of wine infused with herbs believed to heighten pleasure. Yes, ancient Egyptians knew how to party. These celebrations weren't just about revelry, though. They were acts of devotion, opportunities to channel Hathor's divine energy into their own lives. Picture yourself joining the crowd, swaying to the beat, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin and the buzz of anticipation in your chest. For a few hours, worries faded, inhibitions melted, and love, whether romantic, platonic, or self-directed, felt limitless. Of course, Hathor's influence wasn't limited to happy occasions. In darker moments, when hearts broke or dreams shattered, people turned to her for solace. There's a quirky tidbit suggesting that some individuals wore amulets shaped like Hathor's face, believing the goddess would absorb their sorrow and replace it with peace. Others wrote letters to her on papyrus, detailing their struggles in painstaking detail. Dear Hathor, one such letter might begin, I gave my heart to someone who did not cherish it. Please help me find strength to move forward. Whether these pleas reached her ears remains unknown, but the act of writing them likely brought comfort, if only because it forced the writer to confront their pain head-on. Yet for all her benevolence, Hathor had a wild side, one that added layers of complexity to her persona. Legends speak of her transformation into Sekhmet, a lioness goddess consumed by rage, sent to punish humanity for hubris, only after being placated with rivers of red-dyed beer, a clever trick to mimic blood. Did she revert to her gentler form? It's a fascinating duality. Hathor is both nurturer and destroyer, capable of immense kindness and equally fierce wrath. Perhaps this paradox made her relatable, a reminder that love itself is multifaceted. Sometimes tender, sometimes tempestuous, but always worth pursuing. As you stand before her statue now, you notice something intriguing. Offerings left behind by recent visitors. A cluster of dried lotus flowers sits near her feet, their petals brittle but still fragrant. Beside them, a string of blue beads glimmers faintly in the lamplight, each bead etched with tiny hieroglyphs spelling out blessings for health and happiness. Someone has even placed a small loaf of bread wrapped in linen, its surface dusted with sesame seeds. These gifts feel personal, imbued with intention, as if the donors hoped Hathor would recognize their sincerity and grant their wishes accordingly. Before leaving, you take a moment to reflect on what Hathor represents. Not just love, but the courage to embrace it fully in all its forms. Whether you're seeking passion, healing, or simply a reminder that joy exists even in difficult times, she stands ready to guide you. Her golden gaze follows you as you turn away, her smile unwavering, as if to say, go ahead, take the next step. I'll be here when you need me. You step out of Hathor's radiant chamber and into a quieter, more contemplative space, a library of sorts, though calling it that feels inadequate. The room is lined with shelves carved directly into the stone walls, each niche cradling scrolls of papyrus fragments that look as fragile as butterfly wings. Some are rolled tightly, their ends tied with fraying linen ribbons. Others lie open, their surfaces covered in dense rows of hieroglyphs and delicate illustrations. It's a treasure trove of knowledge, but tonight, you're here for something specific. Verses so intimate they would make even the most stoic scholar blush. These aren't just records, they're confessions, pleas, and declarations of love preserved for eternity. You approach one of the shelves cautiously, running your fingers along the edge of a partially unfurled scroll. Its surface is brittle, the ink faded in places, but the words still leap off the page with startling clarity. Historians still argue whether these texts were meant to be read aloud during ceremonies or kept private as personal mementos. Either way, their content reveals a side of ancient Egyptian culture that's both familiar and disarmingly vulnerable. Imagine someone centuries ago sitting cross-legged on the floor, quill in hand, pouring their heart onto this fragile material. Did they write by candlelight, pausing occasionally to wipe away tears? Or did they scribble feverishly, driven by the urgency of emotions too powerful to ignore? One passage catches your eye, its language surprisingly modern despite its age. Your voice has wined my soul, it begins, and your touch ignites stars within me. You can't help but smile at the imagery. It's poetic, yes, but also achingly human. Who among us hasn't felt that intoxicating rush of infatuation, where every word spoken by the beloved seems like poetry, and every glance sets off fireworks in the chest? Yet there's a rawness to these lines that transcends time, reminding you how universal love truly is. Whether written on papyrus or typed into a late-night text message, the sentiment remains the same. I see you, I feel you, and I am undone by you. But not all the verses are so tender. Some are downright cheeky, bordering on scandalous. Take, for instance, a fragment describing a lover's physical attributes in excruciating detail. Her hips sway like the Nile in flood season. One line reads, while another boasts, his arms are strong enough to wrestle bulls, yet gentle when holding me close. It's playful, flirtatious, and undeniably bold. You can almost hear the laughter behind the words, the writer reveling in the joy of admiration without a trace of shame. Ancient Egyptians clearly understood that love wasn't always serious business. It could be fun, lighthearted, and unapologetically sensual. And then there are the poems tinged with longing, their tone shifting from celebratory to wistful. One scroll speaks of separation. It's often lamenting the absence of a partner who has traveled far. The days stretch endlessly without you, it reads, and the nights grow colder with each passing moon. There's a desperation here that feels almost palpable, as if the writer feared their words might never reach the intended recipient. Perhaps they tucked the scroll into a satchel, hoping a caravan trader would deliver it across deserts and rivers. Or maybe they left it at a temple, trusting Hathor to carry their message through dreams. Whatever the method, the act of writing itself must have brought some measure of relief, an outlet for grief, a lifeline thrown into the void. Quirky tidbits abound in these texts, too. For example, one poem describes a couple exchanging locks of hair as tokens of fidelity, a practice that seems oddly romantic until you remember how impractical it would be today. Sure, honey, let me just grab my scissors. Another fragment references a game played between lovers, involving dice and promises made under oath. If you won, your partner had to fulfill a request. Anything from a kiss to a day spent together exploring the marketplace. Lose, however, and you owe them a favor instead. It's hard not to chuckle at the thought of such playful bargaining, especially knowing that stakes could range from charmingly innocent to hilariously daring. As you continue exploring the shelves, you stumble upon a particularly intriguing piece, a dialogue between two lovers debating the nature of true devotion. One argues that loyalty is proven through grand gestures, like building monuments or commissioning statues. The other counters that real love lies in the small, everyday acts, sharing bread, offering a cloak against the evening chill, or simply listening without judgment. Their exchange feels eerily relevant, doesn't it? Even now, people wrestle with similar questions, tour between flashy displays of affection and quiet, consistent care. Maybe the answer lies somewhere in between, or perhaps it's different for everyone. Either way, the debate underscores a truth about love. It's complicated, messy, and endlessly fascinating. Before moving on, you pause to examine one final scroll, its edges crumbling, but its message intact. Written in bold, confident strokes, it declares, "Love is eternal, even when bodies fade." It's a sentiment that stops you in your tracks, forcing you to consider its implications. Is love truly timeless, existing beyond mortal constraints? Or is it a fleeting spark, destined to burn brightly before extinguishing? Ancient Egyptians seem to believe in the former, crafting tombs adorned with images of couples reunited in the afterlife and inscribing vows meant to endure forever. Yet here, surrounded by fragile papyrus and fading ink, you're reminded of love's fragility as well as its resilience. You carefully roll the scroll back up, tucking it gently into its niche. As you turn to leave, the weight of what you read settles over you, not burdensome, but grounding. These verses weren't written for fame or posterity. They were acts of vulnerability, attempts to capture something intangible and sacred. And though their authors are long gone, their voices linger, whispering across millennia to remind you that love, in all its forms, deserves to be celebrated, cherished, and remembered. The air grows cooler as you leave the library, carried with a faint metallic tang that hints at something both opulent and enigmatic. Ahead, the corridor widens into a grand hall illuminated by dozens of oil lamps suspended from the ceiling, their flames casting golden light onto walls adorned with frescoes of Cleopatra VII, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt. Her image is unmistakable, regal yet approachable, her eyes sharp with intelligence, her lips curve into a knowing smile. But tonight, you're not here to admire her political acumen or marvel at her legendary alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. No, you've come to glimpse how she mastered the art of enchantment beyond legend, how she wielded love not just as a weapon, but as a finely tuned instrument. You step closer to one of the murals, its colors still vibrant despite centuries of wear. In it, Cleopatra reclines on a gilded couch, surrounded by platters of figs, dates, and honey-soaked pastries. Servants fan her with peacock feathers while musicians play softly in the background. It's an image designed to inspire awe, yet there's more to it than meets the eye. Historians still argue whether Cleopatra's allure stemmed primarily from her beauty, or if her charisma and wit played equally crucial roles. Some suggest her magnetism lay in her ability to adapt, to speak multiple languages fluently, to understand the cultural nuances of those around her, and to project an aura of effortless confidence that disarmed even her most formidable opponents. Others point to her rumored use of perfumes and cosmetics infused with rare ingredients like myrrh and crushed pearls, claiming she crafted an olfactory signature as memorable as her presence. But let's talk specifics, shall we? Because Cleopatra didn't rely solely on charm or luxury to captivate hearts. She was a strategist, keenly aware of how to leverage emotions for personal and political gain. Take, for instance, her infamous meeting with Julius Caesar. Rather than arriving in Rome draped in finery, she reportedly had herself smuggled into his quarters rolled up in a carpet, a bold move that ensured her introduction will be unforgettable. Imagine the scene. Caesar, perhaps distracted by paperwork or the day's politics, looks up to find a woman emerging gracefully from what he assumed was mere cargo. The audacity alone must have been intoxicating. Add to that her quick wit and commanding demeanor, and it's no wonder their alliance blossomed into something far deeper. Yet Cleopatra's mastery extended beyond dramatic entrances. She understood the power of setting, how environment could shape perception and deepen connection. Accounts describe her royal barge as a floating palace, its decks covered in rose petals and its sails scented with Kifi incense. When hosting banquets, she spared no expense, serving dishes plated with gold and entertaining guests with performances by acrobats, dancers, and poets. Even the wine flowed freely, each glass laced with herbs believed to heighten pleasure and foster camaraderie. Let's just say ancient Egyptians knew how to throw a party. These gatherings weren't just displays of wealth. They were carefully orchestrated experiences meant to leave attendees dazzled and indebted. Quirky tidbits abound when it comes to Cleopatra's methods of seduction. One account suggests she once dissolved a priceless pearl earring in vinegar and drank it as part of a wager with Mark Antony, proving her willingness to embrace excess in pursuit of amusement. Another tale describes her commissioning custom-made amulets for herself and her lovers, each piece engraved with symbols meant to bind their souls together. Whether these stories hold literal truth remains debatable, but they underscore a larger point. Cleopatra thrived on spectacle, using every tool at her disposal to create moments that lingered long after the initial encounter. Still, her genius wasn't limited to grand gestures. She also excelled at subtlety, weaving small acts of kindness and attentiveness into her interactions. For example, she reportedly memorized the names and preferences of key figures in her court, ensuring they felt valued and respected. A servant might receive a gift tailored specifically to their taste. A musician could find new strings to their lyre, while a scribe might discover fresh reeds for writing. Such details may seem minor, but they added layers of intimacy to her relationships, fostering loyalty and admiration among those who served her. As you gaze at another mural depicting Cleopatra alongside Mark Antony, you notice something intriguing. Their expressions aren't those of conquerors or schemers. They're softer, almost tender. Legend has it that Cleopatra often accompanied Antony on military campaigns, not just as a figurehead, but as a partner who shared his burdens and celebrated his victories. Together, they hosted festivals known as the Inimitable Livers, events characterized by hedonistic revelry and unbridled joy. While some viewed these gatherings as frivolous, others saw them as proof of a genuine bond, one built on mutual respect and shared passions. Before leaving the hall, you pause to consider Cleopatra's legacy. Was she merely a seductress, as some historians have portrayed her? Or was she a visionary leader who understood the complexities of human emotion and used them to navigate a turbulent world? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. What's undeniable is her impact, not just on history, but on our collective imagination. Her story reminds us that love, whether romantic or strategic, requires intention, creativity, and a dash of daring. And as you turn away from the murals, her voice seems to echo softly in your mind, whispering, "To enchant is to empower." The golden glow of Cleopatra's hall fades as you step into a dimly lit chamber, its walls lined with niches containing small clay figurines and amulets. The air here feels different, charged, almost electric, as if the objects themselves are alive with intent. You run your fingers along the edge of a wooden table in the center of the room, feeling the grooves left behind by countless hands that once sought solace or strength within these walls. Tonight, you're here to explore the tiny charms dangling from leather cords and fine chains, amulets for lovers, each promising fidelity, protection, or perhaps even betrayal. These weren't mere trinkets. They were conduits of hope, fear, and desire, imbued with meanings far weightier than their size suggested. You pick up one of the amulets, its surface cool and smooth beneath your touch. Shaped like an ankh, the symbol of life, it's etched with faint hieroglyphs spelling out a blessing for enduring love. Historians still argue whether such amulets were worn openly or kept hidden, tucked inside linen wrappings or under garments where only the wearer could feel their presence. Either way, their purpose was clear: to serve as tangible reminders of promises made, vows spoken, or prayers whispered into the night. Imagine slipping this around your wrist centuries ago, trusting it to safeguard your bond against time's relentless march. Would you glance at it often, drawing comfort from its weight? Or would you forget it was there until moments of doubt crept in, prompting you to clutch it tightly and whisper another plea? But not all amulets carry benevolent intentions. Some were crafted with darker purposes in mind, charms designed to bind, manipulate, or even curse. One particularly infamous example involved tying two figurines together with red thread, then burying them near the home of an unfaithful lover. The belief was that this act would trap their heart, forcing them to return or face consequences too dire to contemplate. Quirky, sure, but also chilling when you consider the desperation driving such rituals. Love has always been messy business, hasn't it? Sometimes tender, sometimes cruel, but never indifferent. And yet, even among these shadowy practices, there's a strange beauty to the craftsmanship. Take, for instance, a delicate pendant shaped like a pair of intertwined lotus flowers. Its petals are painted in shades of blue and gold, their edges so finely detailed they seem ready to unfurl at any moment. Inside, a tiny compartment holds a rolled-up scrap of papyrus inscribed with a lover's name. It's easy to imagine someone clutching this pendant during long separations, tracing its curves with trembling fingers while imagining the face behind the name. Perhaps they kissed it before bed, believing the gesture might somehow bridge the distance between them. Or maybe they simply held it close, letting its weight anchor them during storms both literal and emotional. Another amulet catches your eye, a small silver scarab engraved with symbols associated with Bes, the mischievous dwarf god who guarded households and dreams. This one wasn't meant for romance per se, but rather for protection during vulnerable moments. Newlyweds might wear it on their wedding night, trusting Bes to ward off jealousy, envy, or ill intentions from outsiders. Mothers-to-be often carried similar charms, praying for safe deliveries and healthy children. Love, after all, isn't confined to passion alone. It encompasses family, friendship, and the quiet bonds that sustain us through life's chaos. Yet even within these broader contexts, the underlying theme remains the same: a yearning for connection, security, and peace. As you examine the scarab more closely, you notice something unusual, a faint residue clinging to its underside. Rubbing your thumb across the surface, you realize it's dried honey, sticky, sweet, and unmistakably deliberate. Ancient Egyptians believed honey possessed magical properties, capable of attracting sweetness into one's life while repelling bitterness. Coating an amulet in honey added an extra layer of potency, transforming it from a passive object into an active participant in the wearer's journey. Whether this particular charm belonged to someone hoping to mend a fractured relationship or simply seeking joy is impossible to know, but the intention behind it feels achingly human. Before moving on, you pause to consider the dual nature of these artifacts. On one hand, they represent faith, the belief that something as simple as a carved stone or woven thread could influence fate itself. On the other, they reflect vulnerability, exposing fears and desires too raw to voice aloud. Each amulet tells a story, whether it's a tale of a hopeful bride praying for a happy marriage, a betrayed lover seeking revenge, or a grieving widow clinging to memories of a lost partner. Together, they form a tapestry of emotions as complex and varied as love itself. You place the scarab back in its niche, your fingertips lingering on its surface for a moment longer. As you turn to leave, the faint scent of honey lingers in the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of aged clay and incense. It's comforting somehow, grounding you in the present while reminding you of the countless lives that have passed through this space before you. And though the amulets remain silent, their presence whispers louder than words. We carry what we cherish, and what we cherish shapes us. The scent of honey fades as you step into a darker, quieter chamber, a space where shadows stretch long across the floor, and the air feels thick with dreams both sweet and restless. At the center of the room stands a statue of Bes, his grinning face larger than life, tongue sticking out in perpetual mischief. His dwarf-like figure is carved with exaggerated features, wide eyes, a bulbous nose, and hands resting on hips as if he's mid-dance. Yet there's something undeniably comforting about him, like an eccentric uncle who shows up uninvited but always leaves you laughing. Historians still argue whether Bes was primarily a guardian of households, or if his role extended specifically to protecting lovers' dreams from turning sour. Either way, tonight, you're here to explore how this peculiar god danced through the subconscious minds of those yearning for romance, or trying desperately to avoid heartbreak. You approach the statue cautiously, your footsteps muffled by reed mats scattered across the stone floor. The flickering light of oil lamps casts playful shadows on Bes's form, making it seem as though he's swaying gently to music only he can hear. Ancient Egyptians believed that sleep wasn't just rest. It was a portal to another realm where emotions ran wild and unresolved tensions bubbled to the surface. For lovers navigating the chaos of relationships, this could be dangerous territory. Enter Bes, part trickster, part protector, and entirely unpredictable. He didn't just guard against nightmares. He intervened when dreams threatened to unravel fragile bonds or amplify lingering doubts. Imagine lying down in one of these chambers centuries ago, your head pillowed on linen stuffed with aromatic herbs meant to induce vivid visions. Before drifting off, you'd whisper a prayer to Bes, asking him to steer your subconscious toward clarity rather than confusion. Perhaps you hoped to dream of reconciliation with a distant partner, or maybe you sought reassurance that your feelings were reciprocated. Whatever the desire, Bes took charge once your eyelids fluttered shut. Legend suggests he had a knack for transforming troubling scenarios into comedic ones. Imagine dreaming of a lover walking away, only for them to trip over a sandal strap, while Bes cackles gleefully in the background. Absurd? Absolutely. But sometimes laughter is the best antidote to fear. Quirky tidbits abound when it comes to Bes's methods. One account describes couples placing small figurines of him under their sleeping mats, believing his proximity would prevent arguments from manifesting in dreams. Another tale claims that women hoping to conceive would wear amulets depicting Bes playing a harp, trusting his musical prowess to soothe anxieties and foster intimacy. Side note, picture explaining that choice to a modern jeweler. "I'd like a charm of a dancing dwarf strumming a tiny harp, please." These practices might sound odd, but they underscore a universal truth. Love thrives in environments free from stress and fear. If Bes could clear the path, even symbolically, he earned his keep. Yet, Bes wasn't all whimsy and pranks. In darker moments, when hearts broke or trust shattered, he became a shield against despair. Picture someone tossing and turning, haunted by visions of betrayal or abandonment. Bes will reportedly appear in these dreams, not with levity this time, but with quiet resolve. He'd stand between the dreamer and their tormentor, arms crossed, daring the specter of doubt to take another step. Sometimes he'd even nudge the dream narrative toward resolution, perhaps guiding the dreamer to confront their fears directly or offering cryptic advice wrapped in riddles. "Trust the Nile, not the storm," he might say, leaving you to decipher his meaning upon waking. As you circle the statue, you notice something intriguing. Carvings at its base depicting scenes of everyday life. Couples sit together under date palms, children chase cats through courtyards, and musicians play flutes while dancers spin in circles. Amidst these images, Bes appears repeatedly, not as a central figure, but as a subtle presence lurking in corners or peeking around doorways. It's almost as if he's reminding viewers that joy exists in the mundane, that love isn't confined to grand gestures or dramatic decorations. Sometimes, it's simply sharing bread, laughing at spilled wine, or finding comfort in familiar routines. Bes understood this better than most gods. He didn't demand perfection. He celebrated imperfection. Before leaving, you pause to examine a small clay figurine of Bes perched near the statue's feet. Its surface is worn smooth, likely from years of being held close during restless nights. You wonder about the person who once clutched it, seeking solace in its mischievous grin. Did it bring them peace? Or did they wake frustrated, their dreams still tangled in knots no god could untie? Whatever the outcome, the act of reaching out, of trusting Bes to guide them, speaks volumes about the human need for connection, even in solitude. As you turn to leave, the faint echo of laughter lingers in the air, soft and warm like the hum of bees on a summer afternoon. It's easy to imagine Bes chuckling quietly, his work done for now. And though you may never fully understand his methods, his message remains clear. Love, in all its messy glory, deserves protection, and sometimes a little humor goes a long way. The laughter fades as you step out of Bes's chamber and into a corridor that opens onto a serene courtyard bathed in silvery moonlight. At its center lies a reflecting pool, its surface so still it mirrors the heavens above. Stars shimmer faintly on the water, their light rippling ever so slightly with the occasional breeze. Beyond the pool stretches the silhouette of the Nile, its dark waters glinting like obsidian under the night sky. You feel drawn to its edge, compelled by an unspoken promise whispered through the ages. These waters hold the power to heal broken hearts. This isn't just a river. It's a lifeline, a conduit for renewal, and tonight, you're here to drift on its sacred currents. You kneel beside the reflecting pool, dipping your fingers into its cool depths. The sensation is grounding, almost electric, as if the water carries within it memories of all who have sought solace here before you. Historians still argue whether the Nile was viewed primarily as a physical necessity or as a spiritual force capable of influencing emotions and destinies. What's undeniable, though, is its centrality to ancient Egyptian life and love. Imagine someone centuries ago standing where you are now, gazing at the same stars reflected in the same waters, praying for guidance or healing. Did they toss lotus petals onto the surface, watching them float aimlessly until carried away by invisible tides? Or did they simply sit quietly, letting the gentle lapping of waves wash over their weary soul? But let's talk specifics, shall we? Because the Nile wasn't just admired for its beauty. It was actively engaged with during rituals meant to mend fractured relationships or rekindle fading passions. One such practice involved couples wading into the shallows at dawn, holding hands as the first rays of sunlight kissed the horizon. As they stood knee-deep in the cool water, priests would chant blessings invoking Hathor and other deities associated with love and fertility. The idea was simple yet profound. Immerse yourselves in the source of life itself, allowing its energy to flow between you and restore what time or hardship had worn thin. It must have felt transformative, standing there surrounded by the hum of insects and the distant call of birds waking to greet the day. Quirky tidbits abound when it comes to how the Nile shaped romantic traditions. For instance, some believe that drinking water directly from the river during certain lunar phases could enhance fertility, not just physically, but emotionally as well. Newlyweds might fill clay jars with Nile water and keep them in their home, using the liquid to bless meals or anoint each other's foreheads during intimate moments. Others claim that bathing in the Nile under a full moon could cleanse not only the body, but also the spirit, washing away lingering doubts or resentments. Imagine explaining that spa treatment to modern skeptics. Step right up. Our full moon cleansing package includes mud masks and existential clarity. Yet the Nile's influence extended beyond individual acts of devotion. Entire festivals were dedicated to celebrating its role in sustaining life and love. During the annual flooding season, communities gathered along its banks to honor Hapi, the god of the Nile's inundation, whose generosity ensured fertile soil for crops and prosperity for families. Musicians played flutes and harps, dancers twirled in flowing linen robes, and everyone feasted on dishes prepared with ingredients grown thanks to the river's bounty. These gatherings weren't just about gratitude. They were opportunities to strengthen communal bonds, including those between lovers. Picture yourself joining the crowd, laughing as children splashed in the shallows, while elders shared stories of past floods and miracles. Love, after all, thrives in environments rich with connection and joy. As you move closer to the riverbank, you notice something intriguing. Small clay boats floating gently on the water, each carrying offerings of flowers, grains, or tiny figurines. Some are adorned with ribbons tied into intricate knots, symbolizing promises made or prayers sent. These vessels weren't meant to reach any particular destination. They were offerings left to the current, trusting the Nile to carry intentions far beyond human reach. Perhaps someone hoped their message would find its way to a lost partner, or maybe they simply wanted to release burdens too heavy to bear alone. Whatever the reason, the act of setting these boats adrift feels achingly poetic, a reminder that sometimes surrendering control is the most powerful step toward healing. Before leaving the courtyard, you pause to consider the dual nature of the Nile. On one hand, it represents stability, a constant presence shaping landscapes and lives across millennia. On the other, it embodies unpredictability. Its floods both blessing and curse depending on timing and intensity. Love shares its duality, steady yet tumultuous, nurturing yet challenging. Ancient Egyptians understood this balance instinctively, weaving it into their rituals and beliefs. They didn't shy away from the river's complexities. Instead, they embraced them, finding meaning in its ebbs and flows. You glance back at a reflecting pool, its mirrored surface now disturbed by the faintest ripple. Somewhere deep inside, you feel a shift, not dramatic, but significant. Like the Nile itself, love requires patience, trust, and a willingness to adapt. And as you turn away, stepping back into the shadowy corridors of the temple, the faint sound of water lapping against stone follows you, whispering softly, "Flow with me." The soft lapping of the Nile fades behind you as you step into a darker, more secluded chamber, a space where shadows seem to stretch endlessly and the air feels heavier, charged with secrets too sensitive for open discussion. This is where forbidden spells were unveiled, rituals crafted in whispers and hidden behind veils of secrecy. You pause at the threshold, your breath catching as you take in the scene before you. Etched into the walls are symbols so intricate they almost pulse with energy, their meanings obscured by layers of dust and time. Historians still argue whether these markings represent genuine attempts to bind souls together, or if they were desperate acts born of heartbreak and obsession. Either way, tonight, you're here to uncover what lies beneath the surface of these shadowy practices. You approach one of the carvings cautiously, its lines sharp despite centuries of wear. It depicts two figures standing back to back, bound together by a thick rope that loops around their torsos like an unbreakable chain. Their faces are eerily blank, devoid of emotion, as though stripped of individuality by the ritual itself. Nearby, hieroglyphs spell out a phrase both haunting and familiar. Forever entwined, forever mine. The words send a shiver down your spine, not because they're inherently malevolent, but because they reveal the depth of human longing. Imagine someone carving this image centuries ago, their hands trembling with desperation or resolve. Did they believe such binding could mend a fractured relationship? Or were they attempting to claim ownership over another's heart, ignoring the boundaries of free will? But let's talk specifics, shall we? Because these forbidden spells weren't just idle fantasies. They were meticulously planned ceremonies, often requiring rare ingredients and precise timing. One particularly infamous ritual involved burying a clay figurine representing a lover beneath the foundation of home, accompanied by offerings like honey, wine, or even locks of hair. The belief was that this act would anchor the person emotionally and sometimes physically to the caster, ensuring loyalty beyond death itself. Quirky, yes, but also deeply unsettling when you consider the implications. Love should be freely given, not coerced to manipulation or fear. Yet ancient Egyptians, like people throughout history, grapple with the same universal question. How far would you go to keep someone close? Another spell centered around dreams, specifically invading the subconscious mind of an unwilling partner. Practitioners would craft tiny pillows stuffed with herbs like mandrake root and lotus petals, placing them under their own sleeping mats, while reciting incantations meant to infiltrate the dreamscape of their beloved. In these visions, the target might encounter vivid images of reconciliation or passion, all carefully orchestrated to sway their waking emotions. Side note, imagine explaining that bedtime routine to a roommate. Oh, don't mind me. I'm just trying to seduce my ex via astral projection. While some viewed such tactics as harmless persuasion, others condemned them as violations of autonomy, blurring the line between devotion and control. As you explore further, you notice something peculiar. A small alcove tucked away in a corner, its interior lined with jars containing powders, oils, and dried plants. Each jar is labeled with symbols suggesting its purpose, some for attraction, others for protection, and a few ominously marked with warnings about misuse. One container catches your eye. It holds a fine black powder rumored to be made from charred papyrus inscribed with curses against rivals. According to legend, sprinkling this substance near an adversary's doorframe or mixing it into their food could sow discord between them and their partner, driving a wedge into even the strongest bonds. Dark magic? Perhaps. But it speaks volumes about the lengths people go to safeguard or sabotage relationships. Before moving on, you pause to examine a scroll resting on a low stone table. Its edges are frayed and the ink has faded in places, but the message remains clear. Love cannot be forced, only guided. It's a stark contrast to the surrounding imagery, a reminder that not everyone condone these coercive practices. Some priests and priestesses warn against tampering with fate, arguing that true love required mutual respect and consent. They advocated instead for rituals focused on self-reflection and growth, spells designed to heal personal wounds rather than inflict harm on others. These gentler traditions may not have captured the imagination quite like their darker counterparts, but they offer a path forward rooted in compassion rather than coercion. Yet the allure of forbidden spells persists, doesn't it? Even now, as you stand surrounded by relics of obsession and yearning, it's hard not to feel a pang of curiosity. What would it mean to hold such power, to shape another's heart according to your desires? Would it bring fulfillment, or only deepen the wounds you sought to heal? Ancient Egyptians wrestled with these questions just as we do today, their answers buried alongside the artifacts left behind. You place the scroll back on the table, your fingertips lingering on its brittle surface for a moment longer. As you turn to leave, the faint scent of burned herbs lingers in the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of aged clay and stone. It's comforting somehow, grounding you in the present while reminding you of the countless lives that have passed through the space before you. And though the shadows remain silent, their presence whispers louder than words. Desire demands responsibility. The shadows of the Forbidden Chamber dissolve as you step into a brighter, more open space. A hall where sunlight filters through high, clear-story windows, casting golden beams onto walls adorned with faded murals. These aren't just paintings. They're fragments of memory, glimpses into temples now lost to time and sand. Tonight, you're here to reimagine those sacred spaces, to breathe life back into crumbling ruins, and uncover the love potions brewed beneath starlit skies. The air hums faintly, as if the stones themselves remember the rituals once performed within their embrace. You pause to take it all in, feeling the weight of history pressing gently against your shoulders. You approach one of the murals, its colors muted but still vibrant enough to tell a story. It depicts a temple courtyard bathed in moonlight, its center dominated by an altar stacked with offerings, fruit, flowers, and clay vessels brimming with mysterious liquids. Around it, figures move in rhythmic patterns, their arms raised skyward as if calling upon unseen forces. Historians still argue whether these ceremonies were communal celebrations or private rites reserved for select participants. What's clear, though, is their purpose: to harness the energy of the cosmos, and perhaps the divine, for matters of the heart. Imagine standing there centuries ago, your bare feet brushing against cool stone while priests chanted blessings under a canopy of stars. Would you feel awe or trepidation as the potions simmer before you? But let's talk specifics, shall we? Because these love potions weren't concocted haphazardly. They were crafted with precision, blending ingredients believed to amplify passion, loyalty, or even regret. One popular recipe involves steeping lotus petals in honey overnight, then adding drops of Kiffy-infused oil at dawn. The resulting elixir was said to sweeten words spoken between lovers, smoothing over arguments and reigniting sparks that had begun to fade. Quirky tidbits abound when it comes to these mixtures. For instance, some practitioners insisted on stirring clockwise, exactly 9 times, believing the motion aligned the brew with celestial rhythms. Others whispered incantations into the liquid itself, trusting their breath would carry intention directly into the potion. Side note, imagine explaining that cooking technique at a modern dinner party. Oh, this sauce? Just stir it 27 times counterclockwise while reciting poetry about falcons. Another intriguing formula called for red ochre powder, mixed with crushed juniper berries, and a splash of palm wine. This blend wasn't meant for drinking. It was applied topically, dabbed behind ears or along collarbones during intimate moments. The belief was that the scent would linger subtly, creating an invisible bond between partners. Some claimed it heightened attraction, while others swore it fostered trust. Whatever the effect, the act of preparation itself likely carried significance, transforming simple materials into conduits of hope and desire. Picture someone grinding these components together, their hands steady despite racing thoughts, praying silently that the mixture might mend what words alone could not. As you trace the outlines of the mural, you notice something unusual. Small etchings near the base of the altar depicting animals associated with love and fertility. There's Hathor's cow form, her udder dripping milk symbolizing abundance. Bes dancing joyfully, his grin wide enough to rival any sunrise, and even a pair of ibises bowing toward each other, their curved beaks forming a perfect heart shape. These creatures weren't mere decoration. They were intermediaries, embodying qualities sought by those who gathered here. Perhaps devotees brought figurines shaped like these animals as offerings, hoping to channel their essence into their own lives. Or maybe they simply gazed up at the carvings, drawing strength from their timeless presence. Before moving on, you pause to consider the dual nature of these lost temples. On one hand, they represent sanctuaries, places where people sought refuge in the chaos of daily existence, turning inward to confront emotions too raw to face openly. On the other, they embody ambition, reflecting humanity's relentless pursuit of control over forces beyond comprehension. Love potions weren't just remedies. They were acts of defiance against uncertainty, attempts to impose order on a universe inherently wild and unpredictable. Ancient Egyptians understood this tension instinctively, weaving it into their rituals and beliefs. They didn't shy away from the unknown. They embraced it, finding meaning in the interplay between effort and surrender. You glance back at the mural, its imagery now softened by the shifting light. Somewhere deep inside, you feel a flicker, not of longing, but of clarity. Like the ruins themselves, love requires both preservation and reinvention. And as you turn away, stepping back into the sun-dappled corridor, the faint scent of dried herbs lingers in the air, whispering softly, Memory shapes magic. The scent of dried herbs fades as you step into a chamber bathed in warm, golden light, a space where time seems to stretch and fold upon itself, like the flicker of an eternal flame. At its center stands a small altar, its surface adorned with a single oil lamp whose wick burns steadily, casting soft shadows on the walls. This isn't just fire, it's devotion, a symbol of love that transcends lifetimes. Tonight, you're here to explore how these flames flicker with meaning, reminding you why some vows endure beyond mortal constraints. The air feels thick with memory, almost as if the whispers of past lovers linger in the gentle hum of the flame. You approach the altar cautiously, your steps muffled by reed mats scattered across the stone floor. The flame dances before you, its movements hypnotic yet deliberate, as though it knows why you've come. Historians still argue whether these eternal flames were purely symbolic, or if they held practical purposes tied to rituals of commitment and fidelity. What's undeniable, though, is their power to evoke emotion. Imagine standing here centuries ago, gazing at the same flame while reciting vows meant to bind two souls together. Did the participants feel awe, or did they sense the weight of eternity pressing down, knowing their promises would outlast their mortal bodies? But let's talk specifics, shall we? Because these flames weren't simply lit and left to burn. They were tended with care, often by priests or priestesses who understood the delicate balance required to keep them alive. One common practice involved feeding the flame with oils infused with sacred herbs like myrrh, frankincense, or even crushed lotus petals. Each ingredient carried its own symbolism. Myrrh for purification, frankincense for connection to the divine, and lotus for rebirth. Together, they transformed the act of tending the flame into something far greater, a ritual renewal, ensuring that love remained vibrant even as life inevitably changed. Quirky tidbits abound when it comes to these traditions. For instance, some believe that extinguishing the flame, even accidentally, could sever the bond it represented, prompting panic prayers to Hathor or Bes for forgiveness. Others claim that couples who share the duty of maintaining the flame strengthen their relationship, learning patience and cooperation through the simple act of keeping it alight. Another fascinating aspect of these eternal flames lies in their role during festivals celebrating enduring partnerships. During certain lunar phases, communities would gather around similar altars, bringing offerings of honey, wine, or woven garlands to honor those whose love has stood the test of time. Musicians played softly in the background, their melodies blending with the crackle of the flames, while elders shared stories of couples who had overcome trials unimaginable. Picture yourself joining the crowd, watching as young lovers added fresh oil to the lamp, their hands brushing briefly before pulling apart with shy smiles. Love, after all, thrives in environments rich with celebration and acknowledgement, and these flames served as both witness and catalyst. As you circle the altar, you notice something intriguing. Carvings etched into its base depicting scenes of unity and resilience. Two figures stand side by side, their arms intertwined as they face a storm raging behind them. Another shows a lone figure cradling a flickering torch, shielding it against fierce winds. These images aren't just decorative. They're reminders that love requires effort, protection, and faith. Perhaps devotees trace their fingers along these carvings as they prayed, drawing strength from the stories embedded in the stone. Or maybe they simply pause to reflect, finding solace in the knowledge that others have faced similar challenges and emerged stronger. Before leaving, you pause to examine the flame more closely, its glow steady despite the faint breeze drifting through the chamber. There's something profoundly comforting about its persistence, a quiet reassurance that some things remain constant even as everything else shifts. Ancient Egyptians understood this duality instinctively, weaving it into their rituals and beliefs. They didn't view love as fleeting or fragile. Instead, they saw it as a force capable of enduring hardship, betrayal, and even death. Whether expressed through eternal flames, binding spells, or whispered prayers beneath starlit skies, their acts of devotion remind us that love demands cultivation and rewards those willing to nurture it. You place your hand near the flame, feeling its warmth without letting it touch your skin. As you turn to leave, the faint scent of burning herbs lingers in the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of aged stone. It's grounding somehow, rooting you in the present while reminding you of the countless lives that have passed through this space before you. And though the flame remains silent, its presence whispers louder than words. Devotion endures. The warmth of the eternal flame fades as you step into a corridor lined with towering stone slabs. Their surface is etched with symbols and inscriptions weathered by time. These aren't just walls. They're archives of what was carved into the very bones of the earth. Each step forward feels heavier, as if the weight of unspoken promises presses against your chest. Historians still argue whether these stones served as public declarations or private memorials, but one thing is certain. They hold echoes of love that refuse to be silenced, even by centuries of desert winds. Tonight, you're here to follow those footsteps, to uncover forgotten vows etched in sandstone and memory. You run your fingers along the rough surface of one slab, its edges jagged where erosion has claimed its details. Yet faint traces remain. A name here, a symbol there, fragment of stories waiting to be pieced together. Imagine someone standing here long ago, chisel in hand, carving words meant to outlast their mortal lives. Did they feel hope as they worked, believing their love would endure beyond death? Or did they harbor doubt, knowing how easily time erodes even the strongest bonds? The act itself speaks volumes about human resilience. The need to leave behind something tangible, a mark on the world that says, I was here, I loved, I mattered. But let's talk specifics, shall we? Because these oaths weren't merely decorative. They were deliberate acts of preservation, imbued with intention and ritual. One recurring motif depicts two hands clasped tightly together, surrounded by hieroglyphs spelling out phrases like bound by stars or sealed beneath the sun. Such imagery suggests a belief in cosmic witness, as though the universe itself would safeguard these pledges. Quirky tidbits abound when it comes to these carvings. For instance, some stones bear footprints alongside the inscriptions, believed to represent literal steps taken during vow ceremonies. Participants might walk clockwise around the slab 3 times, each circuit sealing their commitment further. Others claim the footprints were left intentionally for future generations, for children or grandchildren to trace with their own feet, connecting past and present through shared motion. Another intriguing detail lies in the placement of these slabs. Many are positioned near thresholds, doorways leading from inner sanctuaries to outer courtyards, or at crossroads within temple complexes. This wasn't random. It reflected the liminal nature of love itself, existing between worlds, balancing vulnerability and strength. Picture someone pausing at such a threshold centuries ago, reading the names and promises carved before them. Would they feel inspired or intimidated by the weight of legacies left behind? Perhaps they added their own inscription, trusting the stone to carry their voice across millennia. Or maybe they simply stood quietly, letting the silence amplify the whispers of those who came before. As you continue exploring, you notice something unusual. Small niches carved in the base of several slabs, each containing offerings meant to honor the vows inscribed above. Some hold dried lotus petals, others tiny clay figurines shaped like doves or intertwined hearts. These weren't mere tokens. They were acts of reverence, ensuring the intentions behind the carvings remained alive in spirit as well as form. Devotees might return annually to replace wilted flowers or replenish faded paints, keeping the memory of their promises vibrant despite the passage of time. It's easy to imagine families gathering here during festivals, sharing meals while recounting tales of ancestors whose names still grace the stones. Love, after all, thrives in environments rich with storytelling and connection, and these slabs became anchors for both. Before moving on, you pause to examine a particularly intricate carving near the end of the corridor. Its central figure holds a torch aloft, illuminating a pathway flanked by rows of kneeling figures. Scholars debate its meaning. Is it a metaphor for enlightenment, guiding lovers toward truth? Or does it symbolize sacrifice, suggesting that enduring love requires surrendering parts of oneself? Either way, the image resonates deeply, reminding you how often love demands courage as much as tenderness. Ancient Egyptians understood this balance instinctively, weaving it into their rituals and beliefs. They didn't romanticize love as purely idyllic. Instead, they acknowledged its complexities, celebrating not just joy but also resilience. You place your palm flat against the slab, feeling the grooves of the carvings press into your skin. As you turn away, the faint scent of sand and stone lingers in the air, mingling with the quiet hum of history. It's grounding somehow, rooting you in the present while reminding you of the countless lives that have passed through the space before you. And though the stones remain silent, their presence whispers louder than words. Promises leave imprints. The corridor narrows as you move forward, the air growing cooler and softer, carried with it the faintest scent of rain-kissed earth, a rarity in this desert landscape. Ahead, the walls seem to dissolve into shadow, their inscriptions fading into whispers that blend seamlessly with the quiet hum of your own breath. You are nearing the end of your journey, and the temple itself seems to sense it, its energy shifting from vibrant curiosity to a gentle, almost maternal embrace. The ancient world around you begins to blur at the edges, like a painting left too long in the sun, its colors bleeding together until only impressions remain. It's time to let go, to allow the echoes of forgotten loves and whispered remedies to fade into stardust. You pause on the threshold of the final chamber, its ceiling open to the night sky above. A single beam of moonlight spills down, illuminating a shallow pool at its center. The water is impossibly still, reflecting the heavens so perfectly it feels as though you're standing among the stars themselves. Somewhere deep inside, you feel a pull, not toward the pool, but inward, as if the universe is inviting you to release everything you've carried here tonight. The hopes, the questions, the longing for answers that may never come fully into focus. Historians still argue whether spaces like this were meant for meditation or farewell rituals, but perhaps their purpose was simpler, to remind us that endings are also beginnings, and that love in all its forms exists beyond the constraints of time. As you kneel beside the pool, the coolness of the stone seeps through your palms, grounding you in the moment. The surface of the water ripples faintly, not from wind or movement, but as if responding to the rhythm of your heartbeat. Quirky tidbits about such pools abound. Some say they were used for scrying, their mirror depth believed to reveal glimpses of futures yet unwritten. Others claim they serve as portals, connecting the mortal realm to the divine. But tonight, none of that matters. What matters is the way the light dances on the water, soft and forgiving, urging you to soften too. You think back to Hathor's golden smile, Cleopatra's honeyed allure, Bes's mischievous laughter, and the eternal flames that flickered with devotion. Each memory feels less like history and more like a thread woven into the fabric of something eternal, something alive within you now. Before rising, you take one last look at the reflection of the stars above, their light shimmering faintly on the water's surface. There's a strange comfort in knowing that these same stars have watched over countless others who came seeking solace, guidance, or simply a moment of peace. Their stories are gone now, scattered like sand across the ages, but their essence lingers in the lotus blossoms that float silently on temple basins, in the kiffy incense that once filled sacred halls, in the amulets worn close to trembling hearts. Love doesn't vanish. It transforms, finding new ways to endure even when words fail and stones crumble. You rise slowly, feeling lighter somehow, as though the weight of your own heart has shifted ever so slightly. The journey through these chambers has been more than exploration. It has been communion, a dialogue between past and present, mortal and divine, self and other. You glance back at the pool one final time, its surface now utterly still, holding the night sky like a fragile treasure. As you step away, the faint scent of lotus petals lingers in the air, mingling with the soft rustle of unseen wings. It's a reminder that while shadows may lengthen and voices may fade, the essence of what we cherish remains, carried forward by those willing to remember. And now, as dawn approaches, the ancient whispers begin to dissolve, leaving only silence and peace. The temple exhales around you, its stones settling into slumber, its corridors folding inward like dreams retreating from waking thought. You walk slowly, savoring each step, letting the coolness of the floor anchor you in the present moment. Outside, the horizon glows faintly, promising a new day. But for now, there's only stillness, only calm. Your heart beats steadily, quietly, in tune with the rhythm of the earth beneath your feet. Love waits for no one, they say, but tonight, it waited for you. And as you emerge into the first light of morning, the stars fading gently behind you, you carry with you not answers, but something far greater. The quiet certainty that some mysteries are meant to linger, their beauty unfolding slowly, like petals opening under sunlight. The world outside is waking softly, the first birdsong threading through the air like a melody spun from silk. The sky blushes pale pink and gold, stretching wide and endless, as if reminding you how vast, and yet how intimate, the universe truly is. You stand for a moment, letting the cool breeze brush against your skin, carrying with the faintest trace of desert sands and distant waters. Everything feels slower now, quieter, as though the night has wrapped the world in a cocoon of serenity, protecting it just a little longer before the busyness of day takes hold. Your thoughts drift lazily, like clouds untethered from the horizon. The stories you've walked through tonight, the lovers' carvings, the priestess's chants, the eternal flames, linger not as sharp images, but as sensations, like warmth on your fingertips or the echo of laughter heard from afar. They don't demand understanding. They simply are, existing somewhere deep within you, part of the tapestry of who you are becoming. Take a deep breath now, filling your lungs with the freshness of morning. Feel the ground beneath your feet, solid and steady, supporting you without question. Let your body relax bit by bit, until even the tension in your shoulders melts away like frost kissed by sunlight. If any restlessness remains, imagine it dissolving into the air, carried off by the same winds that once carried prayers to Hathor and dreams to Bes. Now, bring your awareness inward. Notice the rhythm of your breathing, slow and deliberate, like waves lapping at the shore. Allow yourself to feel safe, held not just by the earth, but by the knowing that love, even unspoken, even imperfect, is a force that connects us all. When you're ready, settle into whatever position feels most comfortable. Close your eyes and let the stillness wrap around you like a blanket. Tonight's journey has ended, but its echoes will stay with you, gentle reminders that love is both fragile and infinite, fleeting and eternal. Rest now, dear traveler. Let the quiet carry you home.